Mark, I think it's time we had an honest conversation.
I set down the remote, and I waited. Linda uncrossed and recrossed her legs. She looked at her hands for a moment, then back up at me.
I've been unhappy for a long time.
She said.
I think you probably know that.
I didn't respond.
I've met someone.
She continued, her voice steady now, almost businesslike.
Derek and I. It's been going on for a while. I know that's hard to hear. But I think the kindest thing I can do right now is be honest with you.
She paused.
I want a divorce, Mark. I think we both deserve a chance to be happy.
The room was very quiet. Outside, a car passed slowly down the street. The clock on the mantel ticked. I looked at my wife for a long moment. The woman I had shared a bed with for 17 years. The woman who had stood beside me in every photograph I owned. The woman who had been moving money into hidden accounts for years, while I mowed the lawn and made dinner and trusted her completely. I said, "Okay, Linda, if that's what you want." She blinked. I think she expected tears, maybe an argument, maybe begging. What she got was a quiet nod, and a man who stood up, said he needed some air, and walked down the hall to the bedroom. I closed the door softly behind me. I sat on the edge of the bed in the dark, and I picked up my phone and sent Carol one text message. Proceed as planned. Tomorrow. Carol filed the next morning, and that was when Linda's world began to come apart. Her attorney called Carol within the hour, expecting a routine, uncontested divorce. Two reasonable adults. Irreconcilable differences. Split things down. The middle. Move on. What he received instead was a document package that took him the better part of a day to get through. The hidden bank account. 3 of them, as it turned out. Not one. The total assets concealed over the course of the marriage came to just over $480,000. The financial forensics report laid it out with the kind of quiet, numbered precision that is far more damaging in a courtroom than any raised voice ever could be. Then came the records of what that money had been used for. The Rolex, 7 international trips, all logged as work travel in Linda's shared calendar. All cross-referenced with Derek's matching travel records, hotel receipts, restaurant charges on credit cards Linda had opened without my knowledge, a weekend in Napa, a long weekend in Miami the same month. She told me she was attending a conference in Phoenix. Jim's photographs were included as exhibits. I sat in that courtroom, and I watched Linda's face as her attorney leaned over to whisper to her. The color drained from her cheeks slowly, the way water drains from a bath. She turned and looked at me across the room. I held her gaze for a moment, then looked back at the judge. The judge reviewed the evidence methodically. The concealed assets were folded into the marital estate for division purposes. The documentation of financial misconduct affected the settlement terms significantly. Linda's request for spousal support was denied. Her own attorney's fees would come from whatever remained of the money she had spent years hiding. When the gavel came down, I felt no surge of triumph. What I felt was quieter than that, older, like something that had been pressing against my ribs for 4 years, had finally been allowed to breathe. The months after the settlement were strange and slow. I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment on the east side of Columbus. I took my clothes, my book, my coffee maker, and a box of photographs of the kids. I left most everything else. It didn't feel like loss. It felt like traveling light. The apartment was small, and the walls were bare at first, and some evenings the silence was so complete it felt almost solid. But I discovered something in that silence. It wasn't loneliness exactly. It was space, room to hear my own thoughts again, without static. I bought a new mattress, a good one, the kind I had always wanted but never justified. I set up a small reading chair by the window and started working through a stack of books I had been meaning to get to for years. I planted a few herbs on the windowsill, basil and thyme, and watered them every morning while the coffee brewed. Small things, but they were mine. Word filtered back to me over the following months. Derek had ended things with Linda shortly after the financial settlement became public. The version of Linda he had been involved with, the one with the hidden accounts and the generous gifts, no longer existed. Without that version, it seemed, neither did his interest. Linda was staying with a friend. She was looking for work. Her legal bills had consumed a significant portion of what remained of her concealed savings. I heard all of this secondhand. I didn't seek it out. I didn't feel the satisfaction I might have expected to feel. Mostly I felt something closer to sorrow. Not for myself, for the years, for the version of our life that might have existed if things had been different. My son called me on a Sunday afternoon, a few months after the divorce was finalized. He said I seemed lighter. My daughter called on a Tuesday evening, quiet for a while, and then said,
"Dad, I just want you to know, you handled everything really well."
I had to set the phone down for a moment. When I picked it back up, she was still there, waiting. When Mark's story was shared online, it struck a nerve with thousands of people. One person wrote, "I cannot believe he held it together for 4 years. I would have blown up on day one, but that's exactly why he won. He was patient when patience was the hardest thing possible." Another comment read, "The scariest people aren't the ones who shout. They're the ones who get very, very quiet and start taking notes." Linda had no idea who she was dealing with. Someone else said, "Notice that Derek disappeared the moment the money did. That tells you everything you need to know about what that relationship actually was. Mark didn't lose anything real. He lost an illusion, and he got himself back." A longer comment stood out from the rest. "People always ask why someone wouldn't just confront their spouse immediately. But confronting her on day one would have given Linda time to move the money, destroy the evidence, and control the narrative. By waiting, Mark made sure that when the truth came out, it came out completely. He didn't just end the marriage. He ended it on his terms." That last one stayed with me when I read it, because it was exactly right. I think about that Saturday afternoon sometimes. The sunlight on the kitchen floor, the refrigerator humming, the envelope in my hand. I chose patience over reaction, evidence over emotion, preparation over impulse. It wasn't easy. There were nights in those 4 years when the weight of what I knew pressed down so heavily I could barely sleep. Mornings when I handed Linda her coffee and felt something cold move through me. What I know is this: I came out of that courtroom with everything accounted for, every dollar documented, every decision defensible. And when I closed the door of that small apartment behind me for the first time and stood alone in the quiet, I didn't feel broken. I felt like myself again, maybe for the first time in years. The most powerful thing I ever did was say nothing and wait. Thank you for staying with Mark's story to the end. If it resonated with you, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Until next time.